Hello to all of our viewers out there. You're watching Avenue Talks. I'm your host, Story, and today I'm joined by our guest, Gabriele Romagnoli. Thank you so much for being here today.
A pleasure, a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to have some people that are not from the traditional virtual production background. I feel like they bring a new perspective to the conversation. And actually, you're typically in the host seat yourself during your podcast, XR AI Spotlight. How does it feel to be on the other side?
Actually, it's going to be pretty hard to refrain from asking questions. So that's going to be the hardest part.
We're having an ongoing conversation. It's okay. I can be in the hot seat from time to time.
Okay. Careful about what you say.
You've quite an unusual career path, actually. I want to start with that. You did biochemistry. How did you end up to where you are right now?
Yeah, so I actually had a PhD in industrial biotechnology. And here in Delft, like here, let's say, in the Netherlands.
Yeah, in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands here. I work as a scientist at Johnson & Johnson, but then I think that the two things happened. First, I realized that the corporate career was not really for me.
Okay.
And the second thing is that VR came out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wow, this technology is going to change everything. And that's why I decided to, let's say, step out and look for new ventures in startups, smaller teams.
You've actually brought your own Oculus Rift here.
Of course, I would never go without it.
Do you actually bring that everywhere? Are you always on the go? And you put out a lot of content, short scale content, videos about the new XR, new VR products out there. How is it like being on the go in that way? Do you feel some kind of responsibility to be so updated in your industry?
So yes, and I'm not sure that's a good answer because because the point is that there is so much going on, especially when we think about the intersection of XR and AI, and it is hard. It is hard to stay up to date because one of the things I do is indeed share what I learn and continuously talk and learn. So yeah, there is kind of an expectation, but I think that it is much more accessible than what we were thinking like a few years ago. Headsets are getting cheaper. You can scan things with your phone. So technically you have a laptop, you have a headset, a phone, and maybe you're even good to go.
Yeah, you're ready. I would agree. I think for a lot of people, it feels like it's still this futuristic tech that is so scary to even try to understand or to experiment with. How would you approach someone like that? What would you say to them?
So I think, first of all, no, let's just get over it. I think a lot of people also got burned with this idea of the first VR experience they had.
That's true. A few tens of years ago.
Yeah, for me, even 5, 6, 7s, and it's like everything complicated. I think things have changed. The hardware is solid. So if you want to have an immersive experience, you're good to go. And I think give it another shot because we have moved a long way from that.
And actually, one way that you said that you feel, of course, the need to stay updated, also because of your podcast and your newsletter. It's known for clear, straight to the point, actionable format. What helps you separate this promising tech versus like all of the short-lived hype cycles out there in the XR industry?
So the newsletter is mostly made of two parts. One is interviews.
Yeah.
So this means that I go deep in a specific topic. I do some research in advance. And then during the conversation, we go deeper into that. So that's why it's not like the trailer released from the company. I talk with the company. Often I test their tool, their product, their solutions, and then I go deeper into that. That's one. The other thing is that I share updates, what happens every week. And usually I click on every link that I share to make sure that the things kind of work.
Yeah.
Because even though it seems simple, sometimes you go somewhere, you go to a research paper, and there is nothing you can test.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything is to some extent curated. When it's in a headset, I put on a headset, see if the app does what it promises. So that's a bit my approach.
I want to transition a little bit into talking about your other field of expertise. That's 3D Gaussian splatting. It's a big buzzword right now in the industry, also for virtual production professionals. A lot of people are using it, but I think not many people actually understand what's behind the tech. So if you could just walk us through that right now.
I can walk you through the tech, but you say you might be on a hot seat. So do you know anything about Gaussian splatting?
I know that it's sort of like the next step after NERF. So it's kind of like photogrammetry in combination with artificial intelligence or machine learning, I should say.
You passed. I think you passed. So when we usually think about 3D, very often we think about surfaces and meshes and polygons and textures. So Gaussian splatting are more similar to point clouds, but instead each point is basically like an ellipsoid that is splatted. So it's like these donuts, and each one of these donuts in space can have colors, can have transparency, and when you put a lot of these splats all together in a dense space, that's why they create this beautiful photorealistic scene, even for parts that tends to be very hard to reconstruct. Like, for example, hairs that are, or maybe furs, or maybe the other important thing is reflective surfaces. Because one thing also is that these splats, their properties is not fixed, but change based on how you view them. So something might get orange or don't be more red. And that is what is able to replicate those view dependency effects, like a metal plate or something shiny that you have, like maybe our mic or the door in the background.
So when it comes to, for example, furs and hairs, what is the main constraint that makes it so hard to capture data from that?
Yeah, I mean, you can capture data, but it's very hard to reproduce as a mesh because very thin structures are very hard. So when you're looking about that, something like smoke, for example, those are particle-based effects. They are not based on, let's say, meshes and textures reconstructed. So it's a different paradigm, and this makes it more, let's say, capable of representing some reality, but also it comes with a trade-off. It's a new technology, so there is also some challenges around. It's not everything great, but it's a journey, and I think that's also what makes it exciting because it's evolving so fast.
And on that note, what are some challenges that you've ran into? Because this tech is still quite new. I think I heard about Gaussian splatting for the first time maybe like 2 years ago. What has changed so far in the last 2 years? What have you run into, and how is it evolving?
Yeah. So when it comes to the first thing is like capturing them now is extremely simple. Like it is just like crazy. There are apps like Scaniverse that you can just use your phone, your iPhone, and then have splats in a matter of hours, and they look like pretty impressive. Yeah. So from the capturing side, I think it's easy. It has become easy at a consumer level, even at a prosumer level. There are like tools and scanners that can be used. So I think that problem is to some extent solved. There are always room for improvement, but I think it's accessible. The problem is, how do you integrate them in pipelines?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So from one side, there is the world of game engines, right? So there is like Unity, Unreal, and there are many more plugins that are being pushed out continuously. So that's exciting. What I think has right now the biggest momentum and potential is actually the web. So I'm talking about something like Play Canvas or maybe Spark that was just announced not long ago. And the web is really pushing and allowing to then deploy and take advantage of this new way of visualizing these reconstructions and make it much more accessible. And of course, let's not also forget on VR headset, because I just have to say it.
You always, right? It's always going to be in the back of your head. What happened in the industry that pushed for this to happen, especially in terms of now that we're moving to like web-based 3GGS?
And to make this to happen, you mean the advancement in...
Yes. Also like trends, what need was there in the industry that needed to be filled that pushed for this to advance?
I think is the endless pursuit for realism. And that's just really what it does. Is when you are entering in one of these scenes and you're seeing it on the web, and then you're like, wow, this is like real. And the fact that the time of capturing or recreating these scenes is nothing compared to what it is for a standard photogrammetry-based approach, where you can need to take thousands of pictures and you can achieve that level of realism. It's like, oh, this is kind of like accessible and could potentially be cheap, and we can achieve a higher level of realism. We need to tackle all the other challenges so that we can move faster.
Or even the other side, where traditionally you would even build this in a game engine, and then like if someone would have to actually go in and sculpt this and...
Exactly. Then at that point, you have all the flexibility, of course, that you have about building this from scratch, meaning that you can change the textures, change the position of something. We are not there at that moment yet where you can have this full flexibility. But I'm not sure also we are with Gaussian splatting at a level where it can replace an environment created by a 3D artist. I don't see those two competing. I think it's like just two different ways of creating environments.
You bring an interesting perspective. in your opinion, why is it not something that they can, that is going to replace the other? Because I feel like that naturally that's where people think the industry is headed.
I mean, first of all, we have to think that when we do often when we do Gaussian splatting, we think about capturing from a reality.
Right.
So there has to be something real.
Yeah.
If you want a sci-fi lunar whatever landscape, I mean, it's just no way of doing it, right? So I think that is it also creating something from scratch offers you more complete creative freedom and control over what you're going to come. I mean, maybe later we're going to touch about the idea of synthetic splats, because that's also another thing, like using AI to create these splats instead of having like capturing reality. But that I think when we think, I don't see those two competing for these reasons.
Well, let's do that actually. What makes a person or like a crew member want to choose one or the other between synthetic or traditional? Can we even say it that?
Yeah, but let's say traditional, like scanned based reality
exactly.
based. Yeah, so I think that, I mean, right now we are not at the stage where the synthetic splats are like at the quality and of the level of realism that is needed for virtual production, at least for, let's say, those, very close shots, right? Can you imagine if there is something like a skybox, maybe you could think about it. But I don't think we are there yet for that virtual productions workflow. There is a lot of experiments where there is more creative freedom, let's say, like in games, when people are using it to create, for example, this web-based experience using 3JS. And then you see like, oh, okay, now that we have a game where people can jump on. Honestly, I'm still not a big fan of those because I think that what people start producing is just really like collect your coin and we get a reward. Okay, fine. I mean, I get it, but can we be a bit more creative? Like, can we use this to just like try to do something a bit different instead of trying to recycle the same game mechanics? But that's a different story.
Almost in like pursuit of creativity, we've gone full circle and we just started making the same thing
exactly.
again.
Let's instead use this tech and find ways in which it can enable to make something that we wouldn't be able to make otherwise.
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, now we have a collectible game or a runner game when you need to jump on stuff, we use it Gen AI. Okay, great.
How otherwise do you see AI supporting this XR pipeline?
So I think it's very hard to give one answer because I think that AI is trickling in every single steps.
Yeah, it's unavoidable at this point.
Yes, and I think that when usually people are, let's say, very wary and scared is when we think, full replacement. We go from text to video, like those, let's say, and I don't think that's what we are talking about, right?
Yeah.
I think that AI is, and it is trickling down in so many steps in ways that is also, I think, generally also appreciated by the creatives when it is meaningfully part of it.
Absolutely. Something that I've also noticed within the work that you put out is that you, like we just talked about, you're also an advocate for using this technology in different industries, like not just looking at, for example, an application in VP, but also looking at architecture. Like, can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when we think about more closely around virtual productions and so on, I think some use cases are like these LED walls. There is also like thinking about broadcasting. Those offer opportunities. But I think that, for example, architecture is one. The problem with architecture and construction is that they tend to be kind of like very traditional kind of industry. So they haven't been hit in the face like the virtual production people with Unreal. Okay, we got to learn this stuff because things is going to get fast. So I think that there is that industry. And then, of course, there is games and also interactive experiences on the web. So when you, for example, have a product, right, you could then have this product on an e-commerce shops and have it represented and show it to a client, or maybe use that Gaussian splatting based replica of the product to maybe assemble a photo shoot in a let's say in a virtual set. So there are indeed many opportunities there, but indeed plugins and the rest are catching up. Actually, have put together like a handbook on Gaussian splatting.
Yes,
so
promote that right now.
Whoever is shameless, but what they say, like if you want to follow and check out the newsletter, one of the things that I offer to the pro member is this 70 pages handbook. There are over 200 links to plugins and stuff like that people can certainly check. And is updated up to February 2026. So I think it's still actual.
Wow, okay. So what you're saying is basically that learning curve is no longer as steep, so it's not. Don't be afraid to really delve into the tech.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot that can be done already. And also, look, the first step is first you have a basic understanding with something that you can create yourself, and then you can then share those with the people around you, so that you can kind of like do that work of evangelization, but also make people excited. And we are certainly at that level. If you see that there is momentum and there is interest, and sometimes there is time and budget, that's the moment that you can kind of like move steps in the different directions that are more relevant to you.
Another aspect of Gaussian splatting that you're also motivated by is animated Gaussian splatting. So could you tell a little bit more about the viewers? I think that when I heard about your presentation at the VBG, this was the first time that I had ever heard of it. So could you explain it, lay it out clear for us?
Let me ask you, have you seen the Winter Olympics?
Yes.
So I think you have seen Gaussian splatting there way before I talked about it.
Oh, okay.
So some of the replay, when you see actually a movement and then the athlete stops in time and there is a camera movement around him or her,
yes,
those are Gaussian splatting based slow-mo. So what happens is that with animated Gaussian splatting, what you do is that you technically add a dimension of time to the splats reconstruction.
Okay.
So this means that you can have a camera rig. Imagine, like, depending on what coverage, it could be 20 to 40 cameras, depending on different setup. And then you capture as you would do a standard volumetric video capture. That's the moment that you can get the footage. And so with Gracia, company I'm also working for, is that we get this footage and then turn it into a compressed file that then can be played, for example, on the web. We have plugin for Unity or Unreal. And the advantage of doing that is that, again, like for the static splats, especially, for example, in fashion, where there is fabric, it's important, and you want to have hairs and you want to have maybe some light reflections.
Yeah.
Those are all things that standard volumetric capture that are mesh-based, they wouldn't be able to do it.
I can finally talk to somebody about this. Their conversation about the metaverse has kind of died down. What, as an XR specialist, what is your view of it? Are we headed there in the next 10, 20 years, or maybe even a shorter time frame than that? And is this technology that is being put forth now, today, a step towards that?
You know what is the problem? The problem is that whenever we think about the metaverse, everybody refers to something different.
Okay.
So in a sense, like, what happens? I got a questions the other day. It was another talk in Rotterdam, and it says like, so what about the metaverse? What do you mean as metaverse? Because I mean likely different things. For me, the metaverse is like this virtual, interconnected space.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is not about a platform. It's not the metaverse. It's not the Fortnite metaverse. It's not the Roblox metaverse. Those are not the metaverse to me. Those are virtual platforms that can be social, and it is what it is, right? So I think that the metaverse, as I intended, right, as my view of it, it's a bit far away, and maybe the web can help us, because that is the kind of thing where more things, more platforms can be connected. File interoperability and all that, and company fighting each other is still pushing back, but it's far away. Honestly, I'm glad that we are kind of like discussing now here about that's not a thing anymore, because then we can move on and look how this can actually be applied. Yeah,
good point. I think a lot of people got caught up, like you said it yourself, it's not to be owned by a company. We're not looking to monopolize the metaverse, which is this kind of like entity that is like floating in space. We're talking about like a shared space that everybody can connect to virtually, regardless of brand, of headset, or whatever it may be.
And I would argue that then what is actually more likely is that some of that is going to trickle into reality. What happens is that if there is like, let's say, experiences or asset that maybe lives on the web, then we could have them in augmented reality on our phone. And this is like, I would argue, for example, that when we think about the instructional navigation from Google, or seeing where with AR we need to go, or a hotspot, that is probably more of a metaverse than let's say Meta, Horizon, or Roblox, or whatever it is, because it hints more of these interconnecting connecting pieces.
I also like that you mentioned that we're looking to create some kind of standard across all of these tools before we get to this hypothesized metaverse?
Standards, it's probably a very tough words, and we see it that even for it's very hard. It's very hard to get to an agreement of what's and everybody's very protective. So I don't know. There are a lot of these standardization initiatives, but very often, I don't know, maybe I'm going to upset someone. They look more like academic exercises.
Exactly.
Than and philosophical, other than something that moves forward. But that's not always the case.
But also, if everyone is trying to create a standard, then nobody is trying to create a standard, if you understand what I mean. Like, everyone is trying to create their own standard as opposed to bridging everything together under one umbrella.
Yeah. So the conversation went pretty philosophical.
We'll wrap it back around.
No.
Thank you so much for coming here to discuss all of these philosophical questions and also your work. And just want to, before we wrap it up, I want to ask you one final question. Since our audience includes a lot of educators and early career entries, what's one thing that they should understand about Gaussian splatting, 3D GS, all of these tech that we've talked about right now to help them on their career journey in the future?
So I think that right now the first thing that they need to understand is that this technology is somehow there and it's available, and that is the barrier of entry it's very low to then start exploring and experimenting. This allows them, for example, platform like the web, where you can create this incredible showcase. So maybe one thing is like for all people out there that are focused closely on their Unity and Unreal, hey, maybe try Play Canvas or maybe try Spark, because you could kind of like create something that you can even more easily share with people around and inspire. So that is probably like a good starting point.
Where can the people find you? Where can they watch your podcast, subscribe to your newsletter? Let them know.
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn as Gabriele Romagnoli. And my newsletter is called XR Spotlight. You can find it on Substack, and you can join 5,000 more people passionate about this.
Exciting. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you to all of our viewers for watching. This has been an informative session about Gaussian splatting. Anyone who isn't aware, now you have it down, so don't be overwhelmed. The tech is there for you to play with. Check out the rest of our podcast episodes on our LinkedIn page at Avenue Cov. Follow us to stay updated about future works. And also visit our website, avenuecov.eu, to stay updated about guidance sessions and hands-on experience at the XR stage right here at the Breda University of Applied Sciences. Thank you again to Gabriele, and have a lovely week, everyone.
Bye-bye.